right, guys, welcome back. I'm wondering how you did on yesterday's homework where you had to take that trinomial and try to reverse it into do the reverse FOIL and get it into two binomials. So your homework consisted of problems like this. Let's see if Mrs. A can get, here, we'll make this a minus just to make it easy, or not so easy, just make it think a little bit. All right, so your job yesterday on the homework was to take this trinomial and work backwards into the two binomials that would FOIL to give me that answer. Because this is going to allow me to solve this if this was an equation. That's why we're doing this, okay? But right now, we're not even going to solve. We're just going to practice the step where we're writing these as binomials. Now, all the ones you had on your homework paper yesterday had the last number positive. So again, this is coming from my first. The x term is coming from a combination of the outers and the inners, and that 60 is coming from the last. So hopefully by now you've got this down that we put an x and an x, correct? And I have to find factors of 60 to put here and here. So these two multiply to give me this, these two multiply to give me that, and the inners and outers have to add up to -17. So this is where if you're not really good with your multiplication facts, you're going to struggle. So we have to think about what are some numbers that go into 60 and that could possibly have a sum of 17. So you might say, well, 6 times 10, it ends in a 0, so I know what that adds up to 16, not 17. What else goes into 60? 2 times 30, but that's not going to give me 17. All right, now you know that if it ends in 0, it's also divisible by 5. So I think by now, hopefully you figured out that it's 5 and 12. That's going to, this is going to give me x squared. That's going to give me the 60. The inners are going to give me 5x and the outers are giving me 12x. But I need -17. So they're both going to have to be negative because -5 times -12 will give me the +60 that I want. Okay? So that was what you did on yesterday's homework. So now, okay, probably erased that a little too quickly, but that's what we worked on yesterday. So now I want to take a look at reverse FOILing, and I'm just going to change things a little bit, and let's see if you can figure out what I'm going to change here. Okay, can you tell what's different about this one than all the ones on yesterday's homework? Can you figure it out? On yesterday's homework, this last number was always positive, which meant when you went to do your reverse FOILing, you had to put both of the same signs in. Either both negative or both positive, because a positive times a positive would give you a positive, or a negative times a negative would give you a positive. Now, with that minus sign there, that means that when I go, I'm going to put my x's in here. When I go to get my factors of 12, one has to be negative and one has to be positive, because a negative times a positive will give me the -12. Now, right now, it's not going to matter if I had to put the positive here and the negative here, but it is going to matter where I put my numbers. So now, this is a little bit different strategy, because now when you go to add the inners and the outers, this one's going to be negative and this one's going to be positive. Now, you remember when you add a negative and a positive number together, like -7 and +4, that answer is not -10. It's -3. We actually take the sign of the larger number and we subtract them. We take the difference of them. So now, because these signs are different, and I want to get a +4, I have to find factors of 12 that actually, when I subtract them, I'm going to get a 4. So 12 and 1, if they're different signs, if I put a -12 here and a +1, those will multiply to give me -12, but that'll give me -12x and +1x, and that's going to add up to -11. That is not what I want. So what's the other pair of factors of 12? 6 and 4. And if one of them is negative and one of them is positive, and I add 6 and 2 are the factors. And if I add them and they have different signs, I'm either going to get 4 or -4. So that's the pair of factors I want. Now, here's the question. If I want to get a +4, doesn't it make sense then I'm going to want a +6 and a -2? -2 times +6 will multiply to give me my -12. When I do my inners, I'm going to get -2x. When I do my outers, I'm going to get +6x. And those are going to add up to give me my +4x. Okay, so this is a little bit more thinking because the signs are going to be different, because in all the problems on tonight's homework, that last number is going to be negative. And if it's going to be negative, that means you have to have one of each sign. So you're actually going to be looking for numbers that when you add them with opposite signs or actually subtract them is going to give you the correct middle number. So let's try another one. Let's try this one. Okay, here we go. We want to reverse FOIL this one, and we want to find two binomials so that if I multiply them together are going to give me that. So I know I'm going to put x and an x. Now, the numbers I put here, so those are my first, and they give me x squared. These two numbers right here have to multiply to give me -72. So that means one of them is going to be positive and one of them has to be negative. They have to be opposite signs if they're going to multiply to give me -72. Now, the middle term, remember, if we don't see a number, that's 1. So now I have to find a pair of factors of 72 that if I added them with opposite signs, I would get a -1. So basically, two factors that have a difference of 1. And hopefully you figured out that it's 9 and 8. I mean, I could use 36 and 2, but that's not going to give me a 1 when I add 36 and 2. So I'm going to use 9 and 8. Now the thing is, when I do my outers and my inners, I want to end up with a -1. So that means the 9 is going to have to be negative and the 8 is going to have to be positive, because the inners then would give me +8x, the outers will give me -9x, and that's going to add up to be my -1. If I had put the 9 here and the 8 there, then I'd get a +1x, and that is not what I want. All right, we're going to try one more. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do, okay. Here we go. Okay, so I've got to reverse FOIL this. So this comes from the first, so x and x. The -100 has to come from multiplying the last. So if it's going to be negative, That means I have to have one of each sign. So now you might say, okay, well, let's use 10 and 10. Well, if I use 10 and 10, the inners are going to give me negative 10x. The outers are going to give me positive 10x. And I'll end up with no x in the middle. I'm not going to get negative 21. So that's not the pair of factors that I want. So what other pair of factors of 10 do you know? I know 20 and 5, right? But if I add 20 and 5 together, if one of them's negative and one of them's positive, am I going to get negative 21? No, I'll either get negative 15 or positive 15, depending which one's negative. So that's not the pair of factors. So what's the other pair of factors that you know? How about 25 and 4? So 25 times 4 will give me 100. And if one of them is negative and one of them is positive and I add them, I'm going to get 21. But since I want to get a negative 21, does it make sense that the 25 is going to have to be negative and the 4 is going to have to be positive? So that means the 25 is going to go behind my negative sign and the 4 is going to go behind my positive sign. That's going to give me negative 25x from the inners and positive 4x from the outers, and these are going to combine to give me my negative 21x. Okay, so all the problems on today's worksheet, they're all going to have this negative third term there. And because of that, you are going to have to put in one negative and one positive number, which means when you combine the inners and the outers, you're actually going to be finding the difference of these because they have different signs. Okay? So I'll let you play around with those, and then this is Wednesday, and then the next 2 days you're going to practice doing a mix of all of these. So we're spending the whole week on the same topic so we get nice and fundamentally sound in this. Okay, so I'm going to have a super quick one for you tomorrow for the third video of the week, and then no video Friday. Okay, see ya.